Hello and well met. This is Laren with Fantasy Grounds Academy. I'm going to do a show today to help new users and to help current users know where the actual resources are for Fantasy Grounds Unity and for other things. I'm hoping that this will help you decide or take you over the edge on whether or not you want to invest. Playing online is going to be as good or the same as playing face to face. Okay, that's for sure. However, this is a really close second. Fantasy Grounds offers the experience, and it pretty much is what you make of it. So if you're not willing to put in the time to learn how to use it, or you don't want to invest because you've already purchased a bunch of books and such, I understand. So that's something that you have to decide for yourself. However, as a game master, it is a very good tool to organize your campaigns. So even if you don't play online, you can still use Fantasy Grounds to facilitate the library in a digital format, and especially for systems such as D&D 5e. Most of that content, if not all, is not available in PDF, so you can't necessarily get the rules unless you have either the D&D Beyond package or you have the actual books. But unlike Pathfinder, where you have all that, it's fairly easy to use without having to have a subscription. Although I do believe that they are moving to that type of model. So basically, if you already own the content that you are interested in, Fantasy Grounds offers you a digital version of it. So in other words, it saves you the time, the headache, and it also gives you the capability that you wouldn't normally have with a PDF or with a physical book. So there's lots of things that link. There are lots of things that can be copied within the campaign. There are several things that Fantasy Grounds does well, and there are some things that it doesn't do very well either. So it really depends on what you want and what you need and what rule set you're using. All those things factor in. But the biggest complaint, I think, is overall that, one, people get a little intimidated because you're not just learning about Fantasy Grounds, you're also learning how to use Discord, you're learning how to use your computer, and potentially, if you're going to create content, you're going to have to step up and learn some of the programs if you don't already. So you want to learn like Adobe or some kind of photo editing software. If you want to include sound and provide that for your experience for your players or for your campaigns, you're going to have to kind of get into that and figure out how to set that up. So there's a lot to take in, but you don't have to do it all at once. I'm going to recommend that you just download the demo and find a game. One of the Discord servers that I can think of right off the top of my head is the Pug server, which is pickup games. They quite often run games for newer users, and they are set up for that. As far as learning and getting your understanding, get your mind wrapped around playing virtual tabletops, I think that the Fantasy Grounds Academy is a good place for that. Also, the official Fantasy Grounds Discord, and there are other communities as well that have grown up around the idea of helping people get started. There are several resources out there that you should be aware of, and I'm going to bring those up. So first and foremost, when you first start Fantasy Grounds or you want to try it out, just grab the demo. It's not going to hurt you. It works for Linux, Mac, and Windows. It's constantly being updated. There's constant changes and things that are added. And it is an evolving piece of software. So it's never finished, to be honest. It's always going to have changes, and usually for the better. A lot of the complaint was about the interface, which is slowly changing over time. They did not do that initially when they released Unity because they wanted to be backwards compatible. And it kind of slowed that process down, but they're slowly changing the interface and also the memory optimization. So from the day of the Kickstarter to this point, it has improved quite a bit. There are options for you if you want to just buy the license for a month. So if you wanted to just kind of try it out for a little bit, you can use this within a 30-day period and have it returned if you don't like what you got. So you can just go out and buy like one core rulebook and a license subscription, because you don't have to have buy the whole thing outright. And if you don't like it, you can ask for a return. Now, this is not true of Steam. So if you buy this from Steam, you only have a couple hours at the most, I believe. Steam has a different return policy. And just remember that Steam really isn't required to run Fantasy Grounds. It's just a point of purchase. So if you live outside of the United States, it's probably better to use Steam because the pricing will be more based on your local economy. But as far as the return policy goes, it's different. So if you buy Fantasy Grounds on Steam, you only have about an hour or two to return it. If you buy it on the store, you have 30 days. And you just email customer service, you tell them who you are, your subscription, and they'll take care of it. Now, if you start a subscription and then you use it for a week and you decide to cancel it, it cancels right away. So don't cancel it if you plan on using it for the rest of the month. You have to basically unsubscribe or cancel it through PayPal, within a couple days of 30 days. So right now, the licenses are on sale. So today's the 29th of November, 2021. You have until this Wednesday to take advantage of the 25% off. So an ultimate license is $111.75 if you are in the US. A standard license is $30, basically $29.25. So that's not a bad deal. That really cuts down taxes and the majority of the higher end cost. So it's a good time to get in on it if you're going to. If you end up buying this after the fact, it'll pay for itself in the long run. I don't think you'll be disappointed once you get your mind wrapped around it and you start using it. It's actually a lot of fun. It's a pretty cool piece of software. So I'm just letting you know, as a user, I don't work for SmiteWorks. I am biased towards Fantasy Grounds. I have tried other virtual tabletops, but this one seems to be the one that kind of shines to me because I can play it offline. I don't have to have a specific internet connection or a website portal. I use the software. It's kind of self-contained. There are some limitations on both ends of that. So if you're online, it's easier to get on and that sort of thing, and maybe even easier to use, more modern interface. But if you were going to go camping and you wanted to use your content like D&D Beyond or one of the other virtual tabletops, you won't be able to do that. And with Fantasy Grounds, if you took a couple batteries and a laptop, you can actually take this up camping with you and share the information. You could pre-print your character sheets and play around the table. And it's got the capability of being a hybrid usage without having to worry about being connected online. So that's just one of the reasons I like it, because I don't like to be shut out of my content. So if my internet goes down or if I don't have access to the internet, then I still have my content, which is really what sells me on this. The other thing is the content that you're getting is fairly good quality. Fantasy Grounds and SmiteWorks do a really good job converting the content over as best they can. There are some developer things that have to be ironed out over time, depending on the rule set and how it interfaces with Fantasy Grounds. But all in all, the content's pretty decent. It's almost identical to what you're going to get in the hardback or the digital content and more. So you have rollable tables. You have a pretty good inventory management system in most cases. And I'm speaking more from a D&D 5e standpoint, but I know Pathfinder is pretty good, especially Pathfinder 2. I know Starfinder is really decent, Savage Worlds. Call of Cthulhu and the other ones I don't know enough about to comment on those, but from what I've seen, it looks pretty good. I'm getting very interested in the Alien rule set. That is a really cool IP that I'm excited about. There are all kinds of different rule sets that are supported in Fantasy Grounds, but the main ones are D&D, Pathfinder, Savage Worlds, those things. But there are tons of others that are supported. You have Vampire the Masquerade. You have the newer Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. There's custom rule set. This is the old school essentials that was built by the community. So you not only have the standard rule sets and all the popular ones, but there are also some community ones that are being developed by people in the community. So if you are the developer type, or you like modifications, or you like to create content, Fantasy Grounds now offers a store option, which is called the Forge. So the Fantasy Grounds Forge is a place where one can just upload and make things for their specific campaigns and then share those. So if you want something to be shared or you want to sell it, you're able to do that in the Forge. The Forge is a fairly new option. It kind of works like the Steam community mods. Once you create the content and it's uploaded and it's been approved, you'll be able to share it. And most of these, or half of them, are free. I mean, there's not everything's paid. And the ones that are paid are normally not too bad. So these are just things that you can put up to sell so that you can actually pay for your hobby. I mean, if you're probably not going to get rich off of it, but I believe the split is 60-40. I could be wrong, but I think SmiteWorks gets 60%, which is fairly standard, or maybe it's the other way around, 60-40, 40% them. But I have something up on here that I've created. And, I'm not making a ton of money off it, but, I got, a couple dozen people that are interested in what I've made. And it just kind of gives me a way to share that with the community and, also to show what you can do and that sort of thing. So the first things first is you would get the demo, download it, go on to one of the Discord servers, or if you're in the Fantasy Grounds forums, you can also look there. So the first thing you would do is create an account with the Fantasy Grounds webpage, download the demo. Once you install the demo, then you would come into settings, which is on this setup screen once you've installed the software. And in the settings, there is a place where you can put in your user ID. So if you have a license key, you'd put that in there. Even if you don't, you could put in your username and your website password. You click log in and then save, and that is how you start. And then once you start it up, you would update the client, and then you would go ahead and either buy content or look for a game, and then go from there. The next thing is when you start a new campaign, you would click Create Campaign, and this assumes that you have one of the licenses or a subscription. So if you set up a new campaign, you can type that at here. You pick the rule set that you want to use, and then you would pick all your settings accordingly. Once you do that, you'd hit the start. And quite often, like the D&D 5e rule set has the SRD, which is System Reference Document. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a campaign, and I'm going to let this load, and I'll show you what this looks like after it gets started. So it's new campaign is the name of it, so I remember what it was. I'm going to go ahead and make it private so no one connects to this. And as far as extensions go, I don't recommend adding a bunch of these, and especially until you get used to Fantasy Grounds. The only one I'm going to add at this point is the font called the Roboto Font. There's a revised one. I'm going to hit start, and once that happens, I'm going to wait for that to load up, and then I'll show you some more of this. But while that's loading, I'm going to show you a couple other things. So when you're registered on the website, you have forums. This is where a lot of the day-to-day business comes in. So the general is like a lot of announcements. Then you have your support forums. So there's one for Classic, there's one for Unity, there's one for the Forge, and then there's the laboratory, which is all the testing and beta stuff. Finding a game has its own group. So if you're looking for games, there's Pathfinder, Starfinder, Adventure League, there's some convention information, and of course, looking for games. So when you come into the looking for games area, there is a recommended format, and you'll see a lot of different people advertising for games. Just be cautious. These fill up very quick. And then you also have paid games and one-shot games. So that is your main resource. Then on top, there is actually a calendar. So if you want to look for a game in this calendar format, you can do that if you come to the main page and you go to the forums, and then you look up on top. There'll be if you go to the looking for player section. So I'm going to go to look for group or look for game. And then what you'll find is that there is a calendar, a community area where you can actually get onto the calendar and use it to schedule and get onto games. So there is a calendar. I haven't used it in a while, but that is another way that people find games and they look for them. And then there is also places where you can report bugs and all sorts of things. So learn how to use the website because it's basically one of your best resources. If there is a thread that you're interested, like a specific topic, let's go to the House of Healing for Unity. Someone has talked about line of sight going through walls and that sort of thing, or masking of images. So if that's something that interests you, if you click on that and you just read through here and see if there was any solutions made, and if you're interested in this topic, you can like it. You can also subscribe to the topic. So if you want to subscribe to the thread, that way if any recent activity comes, you can have it email you or such, so that you can figure out what's going on and keep up on it. So that's just some of the resources that you have. You also have Reddit. You have all the social media. There's a Facebook page. Fantasy Grounds has its own Discord, or the official Discord. There are many resources. Fantasy Grounds also has its own YouTube channel, its own Twitch channel. I myself am part of this Fantasy Grounds Academy. And a lot of our content is just mainly for helping new people and also teaching people how to use the platform or inspiring them to utilize it for their games. So this is Fantasy Grounds Academy YouTube. And we have playlists on here. So some of the playlists are more geared towards GMs or players, and then there's ones that are for specific rule sets. There's some that are series, so it really depends on what your needs are, but there's a really good resource. You can search for something if, like let's say you want to do character creation. We've done a ton of those. Some of the videos are older, some are newer. So character creation, we have a ton of those. So there's a bunch of things on here that will help you learn. And some of the older content is still valid. So if you find something that was done in Classic, more than likely about 85% of it's still going to apply. So don't shy away if it's it's a little bit older. If it's any older than 2 years, I would say probably not. But anything within the last 12 or 13 months is probably going to be good. Then you have your forums will help you if you have a problem like bugs or anything, and also in our community Discord for Fantasy Grounds, we offer different things for you to get involved with. So I want to basically say that there is a lot of things out here for you. So if you're looking to start Fantasy Grounds and you're unsure about a lot of the stuff, it's something that will happen over time. You're not going to be able to just dive right in. Usually you have to put a little time in. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So this is a new campaign. This is also a D&D 5e rule set, but all of the rule sets kind of have the similar layout. So if you know one system, you kind of have an idea where things are in the other. They might be labeled a little different, but that's not with anything at all. It just depends on the licensing agreement and what's available to public. So I think Pathfinder has a basic core rules, and then there's a couple other rule sets that are like that. But all in all, the free content just kind of gives you a preview. It's very pared down. There's not much artwork. It's sort of a way to kind of get you to see how things look, but it's not going to be the best if you're looking for graphics and maps and stuff. Now, it does come with some basic maps that was provided to you by Smiteworks and Fantasy Grounds. So even if you don't have a lot of stuff in here, there's a few things you can load. So I've already loaded the SRD. And if I close that and you open the library, you'll see that it's loaded the SRD. Now, if you click on modules, excuse me, this will load And if you have any content, it'll show up here. But if you type in maps, there is a basic map pack that comes with the platform for free. There is also a calendar which you can use in game. So there's an in-game calendar, and there's a couple other tables that come with this, and it's pretty it's pretty basic, but it comes with the rule sets or with the basics. And then if you hit next here, it'll take you to the options. If you click on the options button, it'll bring you to the options. Now the options vary depending on the rule set, but you can change the decal in the back, or you can turn it off. You can even set a custom decal. There's a lot of things you can do. In this case, you can turn on a dice tower. So if I want the dice tower to show for my players, I turn that on. And if I want to use the dice tower like the players, I can turn on the show GM rolls, and the dice tower's over here on the right. I can unlock it, move it over, and then park it where I want it. And then you just drag and drop the dice into the dice tower, and that will basically show you the result. But it's hidden, so that's because I rolled it in the dice tower. So there's settings that are dependent on each other sometimes, depending on the rule set and what you're trying to do. There are options for viewing. So on the right-hand side, this is subject to change. I think they're going to go to a collapsible menu, but for right now, the options, if you open up the options menu and you click on sidebar, you're going to have the ability to change out your options over here. So in the host view, you're in GM mode. But if you click play, that's player mode. Create PC is for building and leveling up. You can clear everything out if you want and just add individual things. Or you can hit all, and that'll load everything. So that's just a little tip. So that's just the base of the rule set. I'm not going to have time to go into building characters and all that sort of thing, because we have plenty of videos for these. These are mainly for tips for you guys for when you're first starting out using Fantasy Grounds. The other things that you want to be aware of is that if you are a Paizo fan, if you use Pathfinder or Starfinder, there is an affiliate program that exists between Smiteworks, and it also exists between Paizo. The same agreement does not exist between Steam and Paizo. It is only the Fantasy Grounds store. So if you purchase content on the Fantasy Grounds store, when you buy the content and you update your client, it'll pull in that information, whatever you purchased, and then it'll be available for you in the Fantasy Grounds format. And on top of that, if you go to your Paizo account and you have refreshed or synchronized your accounts, you will get the PDFs. So when you buy the rules on the Fantasy Grounds store, so if I go to the store and I'm going to buy let's say I'm going to just pick one of these. So if I buy this Wrath of the Righteous AP4, if I buy this and then I update the synchronization. So if I go to my account, if I go to let's see, there's that. If you go to your history or the store, and you go to the Paizo account synchronization, this is where you would retrieve all of your Paizo purchases from the website, and it lets me know which ones I already have owned. And then you can send all your purchases to Paizo for the stuff that you've bought that's different, and it will synchronize all that to the store on the Paizo store, and then you'll get the difference in the cost. So if you see a module is like $50 or something like that, it's because you're getting the Fantasy Grounds copy and you are getting the digital PDF from Paizo. So that's why the cost is a little bit higher. And right now, I believe there's a sale on a lot of these IPs. So if you use Fantasy Grounds and you are a Paizo fan like Starfinder, Pathfinder 2, you will know that there is a pretty good bundle deal going on right now. It'd be a good time to finish up your library if you've already have something. And it really does help. So that's one thing. And if you have a Steam account, you need to synchronize your purchase with the website. So that's kind of the same process. You go to store and you go to active or Steam account synchronization. and you click the refresh Steam purchases once you've connected the accounts, and it will pull in your licenses from Steam, and then you update your client and it will pull in your purchases. So that's something that's important when you first start using Fantasy Grounds, is to get all your accounts synced up, get all your ducks in a row, and that'll help you when you're trying to start Fantasy Grounds. So there's a lot of things to consider when you first start. Do you need it for face-to-face? You have books that you already own that you may not want to repurchase. So my suggestion there is just get the rule books. The rule books are the hardest thing to put into Fantasy Grounds. All the rest of the stuff is pretty much not too bad for entering. So you could just get a few rule books and then enter the rest of the data yourself as you get familiar. So I would just get the core rule book for whatever rules that you like. And then if you're going to buy adventure paths or adventures, and you already have the PDFs or the D&D Beyond stuff, you can enter that into Fantasy Grounds as you go. You don't have to do it all at once. You can just enter it in pieces if you want. And as you get more familiar with the interface, you're going to have that familiarity of how to do that. So that's something that comes with time. You're not going to learn that in 5 seconds, but definitely I would just pick up the core book. So if I was going to play, Alien, I would just pick up the main core book. So if I go to search for Alien, here's the, I think this is the main book here. And it looks like it's not very expensive. That's $15 for for the main rule book. And then here's all the things so I'm pretty sure that this is, so this is the main core rule book. So $15 can't beat that. And if you're like Savage Worlds, it's the same thing. It's pretty cheap. So if you go to and you type in Savage Worlds, I think I like Lankmar, so that's a rule set that I've picked up for. But there's even the newer Pathfinder 2 that goes with the actual Pathfinder and Savage Worlds. There's a bestiary, there's the Savage Worlds archetype set. So if you like Savage Worlds but you want the lore of Pathfinder, you can play that. So I do own the main core book, but I don't have a lot of the new modules. So these are just things that you can get with Fantasy Grounds. And a lot of this work is done for you, like all the links, the artwork. You get these reference manuals. So if I go back to Fantasy Grounds and I go to the library, you have something loaded, you will definitely have a reference manual in most cases. So here, if I click on the SRD data and I click on reference manual in the library, this is the actual book. So if I had the PDF or the actual physical book, that's the digital representation of it. And you could go in here and come down and read through this. And this is just kind of like reading through a book. You have pages that you can go to the right or to the left. You have a search field. So maybe you wanted to play an elf, so you can type elf and hit enter. And anytime that is mentioned in here, it'll allow you to pull that up. So it might even have elven weapon training, those sort of things. Silvered weapons, special weapons. There's a weapons table that you can reference. So there's a lot of cool content that's embedded in the reference manuals. It's basically your equivalent to the actual hardback material or the PDFs. There is no way to export the rules outside of Fantasy Grounds. So if you're hoping to purchase it and then export it out, you're not going to be able to do that. That's not something that's normal to this particular platform. Entering your own data and importing is usually a manual process, so you'll have to prepare the text, copy and paste it into Fantasy Grounds, bring in your own images, that sort of thing if you're going to do custom content. So there's that. And when you make tokens and maps and such, there are some guidelines and some suggestions for those. So if you're a homebrew person, you're going to have to really learn how to use Fantasy Grounds and kind of step up your game as far as your understanding of how to use other products. So if you want to bring in a bunch of tokens, you're going to want to use one of the portals like the Roll Advantage token stamp is one of them that allows you to make your little pogs. Maybe you'll have to use Adobe to edit some pictures. You also get used to working with text. So it's not that simple. You can't just take a PDF and pull everything at once. You have to actually put in some work to do it. But once you've done it a couple times, it gets easier. You get more efficient, and it's rewarding. So account synchronization, setting up your profile on the Fantasy Grounds website is your first step. And then you will go and download the demo. Once you've downloaded the demo and you install it, then you will log into Fantasy Grounds with your credentials, even if you don't have a license, and you can actually hit the update button if you do have a license or you've purchased content. And you do have to have a license to purchase content. So if you want the monster manual or something like that, you still have to have at least a basic license. If you don't want to buy anything and you just want to be a player, you can connect to a host or somebody that owns everything and play on their table on their time, and you can make characters and everything else. So this depends on what you're going to do. But if you're a game master, you can host any number of players if you have the ultimate license. If you only have the standard license, then your players also have to have a standard license. If you have the ultimate, they can have standard licenses, demos, or ultimate, doesn't matter. This is kind of a free-for-all once you have the ultimate. But the standard limits you to connecting to other standard users as far as running games. So if you're a game master and you host, you can only host other players that have a license or a subscription. The demo does not allow you to connect to anybody else unless they are the host. There are several rule sets that are supported, so take a look at those and see if they fit your criteria. There are some that are not listed here that are community rule sets I had mentioned earlier. And then you have a little bit of exploration to do. So if you need to understand how to first set up everything, we've done videos on that. So I think we've done just about everything you can think of as far as starting up and getting started. So this video, along with many others, will help you. So if you want to synchronize your Pathfinder account, that's a good thing. One thing that I've done, and I know many users have done this, is every once in a while you'll get a Humble Bundle, which allows you to basically have all the books for like less than $50, and then you synchronize those with the Paizo account. And then from there, you can go and bring it into Fantasy Grounds, and you're going to save a ton of money because you're going to get the difference of the PDF minus the cost of the module. So if you are a Starfinder fan and you want to buy some content for Starfinder, you'll see that some of these books here are, let's see, let me get one of these. So this one, this Galaxy Exploration Manual is normally $40. But if you buy this in a bundle or you buy it with your synchronized account, that's probably going to knock down that price. Right now it's on sale anyway, so you would even get that on top of everything else. So that it's a really good thing to check out and get involved with. There's a one-shot that someone made called Band on the Run. It's really cool. There are a ton of ways that you can capitalize and take advantage of the sales. So you have until the 1st to get a discount on the license, and I believe most of the sales items too will be going on. So that's a really good time to get in on it. There's other sales, so if you miss it this time or you're overextended for Christmas shopping, I think there'll be another small sale, and then there's usually a couple large ones every year. So just keep that in mind. Don't panic. You don't have to buy everything at once. So if you don't want to buy a big bundle, just get a subscription and maybe one rule book and just see if it's for you. If you don't like it, you can ask for a refund. So it's just up to you as to whatever you need. So you have your store that has a shop. You have bundles that you can buy. So if you are somebody that just wants to buy everything outright, you can do that too. There's all types of bundles. There's a 50% off right now for D&D Adventures bundle. There's the Essentials, which is all the rule books. I mean, I've never seen this discount, to be honest. I'm not just saying that. I own all this content, but I mean, I'm kind of jealous because when I bought this, they weren't on the sale wasn't really, wasn't like this. So the result usually generates 50% off any eligible sales items and 37.5 discount for non-sales items. So that's pretty good for bundles. I mean, you're not going to get that in most other places. So I advise, if you can handle it, if you can swing it, I would definitely go for it. But if not, you can always piece together your content. So it really depends on what rule set you're into. Not all rule sets are treated the same. It depends on the license agreements, but they got the main ones covered. And then they even have map and token bundles and such. So like the completionist bundle, if I wanted to complete this bundle here, and I have most of this content, but there's a couple items that I didn't go out and buy. So if I was going to do this, I could complete the bundle. And if I wanted to, for $60, I could update and basically get everything that I don't have right now. And this is the total is $122, but with all the discounts and stuff, it's $60. So it cut it in half. So that's a good deal. The only reason I didn't buy these because I probably never use them. That's why I didn't get them. But that's just a personal preference thing. But like I said, if you're a Steam user, purchasing this, if you're in the United States, just use the store. Unless you have a gift card, of course, then you want to use Steam. But if you're outside of the U.S., you might want to use Steam to get better pricing, depending on the dollar that you use. So if you're using the euro or the pound, it might be cheaper to use the store. I don't know. But as far as other places outside the United States, Steam is definitely the way to go. But just remember the return policy is not the same exactly. The sales should be the same. There are discounts I'm noticing on the website, so the sales prices should be roughly the same. I think they try to make those parallel. And sometimes Steam will have a sale for its own sake, and Fantasy Grounds will mirror that. So if Steam says, hey, we're going to offer a sale on all of our Fantasy Grounds stuff, then Smiteworks will do the same thing. So they kind of have like a partnership there. As far as the support goes, if you go to the Atlassian, which is the wiki guide, this is the new wiki guide, the Confluence for Fantasy Grounds. So if you're wanting help or you want something that you're unable to find elsewhere, you have the Atlassian, which is fantasygroundsunity.atlassian.net. And what you'll get here is a contact information for customer support. You have some links for some helpful things like Reddit, Twitch, YouTube. We even have the Academy on here, the forums. There are articles on here about different topics. So if you wanted to know about Earth Dawn, maybe someone has created a rule set for that. Yep, it's under community rule sets. And it tells you what's going on with it and how to install it and that sort of thing. So there's all kinds of information out there. You just have to know where to look. So you have the software itself, you have the website and the forums, you have the Discord, then you have Reddit and Facebook and I believe Instagram and a whole bunch of different areas that you can get help from. So that's just scratching the surface. And not to mention, you're going to learn as you go. So you're not going to be able to just do everything at once. You put in your time and learn about the system before you go out and buy everything if you need to, and then decide if what you want to do. Because that's really what the community would hope, that you would just get a basic understanding of what's happening with Fantasy Grounds and how to use it. And then at that point, you can decide from there. But I thought I would do this show around the time of the sale because I think it's important to know what your resources are and what your options are. And if you're not happy, like I said, you can always get your money back if you purchase through the store. So just know where your resources are. Join the Academy if you want to really dig in and start getting inspired and learning to use the software. You can use the official forums and the actual official Discord if you are so inclined. And then, like I said, everything you really need is in the forums because you have your general, your support, fighting games, and then specific game systems. And then you have like an arts and crafts area. And of course, like I was showing you earlier, you have the forge, you have the bundles, and then you also have a art subscription that you can get. So if you want the map tools to have more content, you can actually go to the art subscription. So if you go to store and you drop down to the art subscription, this is either a $50 a year or $5 a month, and you get access to a bunch of themes and to a bunch of these art subscriptions. And what you're going to get here are different assets to build content. So if you're wanting to put together your own maps, you can do that once you get a handle or a feel for how the map tools works. So that's another option that you can have. Or you can always bring in your own assets. But this makes it a little bit more efficient and less heavy on your memory. So that's why I recommend this. Otherwise, you just bring in your own stuff. So here's the Siege pack, where you can have siege engines, different varieties of them, ballista, and looks like a trebuchet and those sort of things. So there's a lot of options here. And then if you like themes, there's art decals, and there's actual map packs for symbols. And here's a modern dark theme. So if you like this look here, you can use this. So this would work really good with a like cyberpunk or maybe a fantasy or even alien, if you like, using more modern look. So they are improving the interface as much as they can. So if it seems a little clunky, it'll get better. Don't worry about that too much. You'll get used to it. So the forums is definitely your friend, and the Discord communities, and then of course all the social media. So that's all I'm going to say without repeating myself 100 times. I think you guys get the point. Fantasy Grounds is a good option. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not necessarily for everybody, but it is something you want to consider if you're going to either play hybrid or if you're going to play between systems. Like if you want to use Fantasy Grounds and your books, you can do that hybrid mode. Fantasy Grounds does allow for you to roll dice. What it does is you have a setting in your options, and here there is a manual dice entry. If you turn that on, what happens is when someone rolls a 20-sided, then you would basically roll in here, and what they would do is give you the result, or you would look at it on the table, and you would manually type in the number, and then you hit this OK, and it would either calculate or put this number against whatever you were doing. So there is a way that you can manually enter dice rolls if you need to. So that is kind of a way to use Fantasy Grounds in hybrid mode, and then people will put it up on their TV if they're at home. I like the idea of camping. Like I can sit around a campfire with a laptop and a couple extra batteries and just run all my content. So if I had all my modules and stuff, and I'd have the character sheets printed out, of course, and maybe run a one-shot for the weekend. So that way, it's not tied into anything, and you can introduce new players and that sort of thing. So anyways, take care, everyone. Have a good week. Happy holidays, and hopefully you can take advantage of the current sale that's going on, because it's absolutely crazy. And don't forget that there's a lot of third-party content users. So if you like the content, you already own a bunch of Fantasy Grounds stuff, you go to the DMs Guild, and the DMs Guild has a ton of content, and it's usually on sale, or they'll have some kind. Yeah, so Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale. And if you actually filter this out to go to format and go to virtual tabletop, you're going to find the Fantasy Grounds content, and you're going to have a ton more things to purchase. Generally, there's a lot of good content. It's decent. There's not a negative thing I could say about most of the content on this platform. So if you're into D&D 5e in this case, this is definitely the way to go. You got map packs and all kinds of stuff that supplements the content that's already out. So there's a ton of things on here that you might like. So like I said, you just filter to virtual tabletop, and then if you have a certain setting, you can filter that out. Just depends on, and then you use your PayPal account to pay for everything. So it's it's pretty cool. And then Pathfinder is starting to do their own thing. Eventually, they will have more content. So you can go to Virtual Tabletop on the Pathfinder store, and there are a couple things that you can get on here. So some of these, or most of it's for Astral, it looks like. But I think eventually that will change. So once they allow Fantasy Grounds content on here, I think the sky's the limit. So right now it's all for Astral. And anyways, that's it. I will talk to you guys hopefully in the future. Join our college, or now call it the Academy. And then also check out Fantasy Grounds and see if it's a fit for you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.